Coming up, a Sad Styles production.
Get into it.
Andrew, you live in a place, right?
Yeah, I live in a place. Yes,
like
I live
inside a place.
Is it like I have a dwelling?
Yeah,
like
a dwelling.
Yes.
See, because I do too. You know that. That's where we record our podcast.
Yeah.
And recently, weird things have been happening to me, and I say recently, it's been happening more often. I think I have a stalker.
Oh,
who's
really?
like picked up on where I live, and
Do you think they're a listener?
I have to assume so because they put two and two together, and now they've found me at my, as you said, dwelling.
Yeah, your dwelling.
They literally come by my place every single day.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Every day. And
they just leave me like these like just stacks of paper. And it's like, it scares me because of anthrax and stuff like that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Do you read these things? Like, or what do you do?
I can't imagine why I would. I just toss them out.
You just
toss them out because it's rude.
Every day.
Why is someone else, it's rude enough that they're expecting me to throw out their trash for them. B, I'm not going to read their trash before throwing it out.
Okay, I guess. Yeah,
Especially if they're a stalker.
Yeah, you don't want to enable it.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
No.
So what do the people in the building that you live in think? Like,
they keep just telling me that he's like, they double down on his manhood. They're like, he's a what do they call, like a man? Okay. He's a man's man. A man's man. A man's man.
No.
It's like he's a man's man.
Are you thinking of mailman?
That's what they call him. That's what they call you. Is he stalking you too?
No, because that's not a stalker. They're handing you the mail.
Now, most manly men I know wear big blue shirt, blue pants, blue hat, and carry a satchel.
Right. Yeah. You're thinking of the mailman, M-A-I-L.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Man, so I got to A, change my wardrobe, and B, take a look at the stack of mail because I'm sure it's got some listener questions in it. And we're going to get into it this week on the Retrograde Podcast.
Man. Welcome to the Retrograde
Video Game Podcast, where this week we finally check our email address and answer some listener questions.
My name is Andrew Bascom. With me, as always, is the bad boy podcasting, Mr. Bebop himself.
Mikey the mailman, Marinworth.
Oh, buddy, we're back. We're so excited to be doing this.
Well, Andrew.
Peek behind the curtain.
Yeah, you're back.
I'm back.
I've been here.
You've just been sitting right there.
I've got a bone to pick with you. I've been, speaking of mail, I've been sending you mail. I've been sending you messages.
Yeah.
I haven't left this seat.
Right.
It's been about 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's been about 3 weeks.
I don't know where you've been. I've been worried sick.
It's like a Willy Wonka's grandparent situation.
It is very much a Willy Wonka's grandparent situation.
Your player one, me, my player one, we all sleep head to toe.
Yes, we do.
Or I like to say ass to mouth in a bed together. And then you're just kind of like, the arm just goes across like, no, they didn't come to bed yet.
No.
Yes, last 3 weeks, my player one and I think I mentioned it earlier, so I got married. Yeah, I know. Stupid.
Thumbs down. Don't do it. Ball and chain. Tied down. Sayonara to the rest of your life.
And it's been about a month. We're getting divorced. For the last 3 weeks, we've been in Japan on our honeymoon. So we got back a couple days ago, and that's what's going on with me.
May I be so bold as to say, konnichiwa, Andrew?
Absolutely. Arigato gozaimasu.
How much of the language did you, because you had mentioned this before you left, that you were doing the noble endeavor of trying to learn Japanese before going.
Yeah.
How did that go?
Good. You know, it's so simple when you're on a toilet learning a language and you're like, yeah, I feel like I'm gonna get a handle on this, and then somebody immediately the problem is it gives you that false sense of confidence because you say a couple of words and somebody looks at you and goes, oh
yes,
and then rhymes off 50 words so fast that you're like, oh shit, I think I caught 2 of them.
That happened to me in Spain. I remember I would go into a cafe or something like that. Yeah, I was in Spain one day. I don't know how I got there.
Just woke up in Spain.
And I would sometimes like someone would come to the table, or I would go up to a bar or something like that, a cafe, and ask for something. And I would say it in Spanish, in the limited Spanish that I knew. And they would like roll their eyes and be like, English or Spanish? I'm like, Espanol. And then they do that. They rattle it off. I'm like, English.
Yeah. Just kidding. You know, and then France is kind of famous for that too, where you're like, bonjour, comment ça va aujourd'hui? And you say whatever you know, and they
bonjour,
comment ça va aujourd'hui?
Oh, I thought you said comment ça aujourd'hui.
Hey, okay, what are you, fucking the police right now? Just relax.
I am not fucking the police. They're fucking me, and they're fucking all of us.
Yeah, ACAB, baby. No, they're famous for like, you say whatever you think you can right off the top, and they look at you and go, So what can I get you?
Yeah.
And they don't even engage with you at all. Like, I know you don't speak French. Don't
Yes.
try it. And you're like, okay. Whereas, Japan, they tried their best. I will say, most countries you go to, we have this wonderful luxury that English is a predominant language
Yes.
for entertainment and things. So most people have, can
English.
speak English.
American?
Yeah. Oh, can speak American.
Yeah,
I'm so
yeah.
sorry. And in Japan, that is not true.
Oh, really?
Most places they're like, and then they look at and we both go to translators very fast, which I thought was actually kind of charming and maybe adds to the appeal of like feeling like you're in a different country instead of a version of your home in another place.
Yeah, I was talking to someone recently, and we'll get into our video game conversations
we'll get into that.
and our questions a bit, because Andrew, a lot of what you did centered around visiting some Nintendo-themed areas, doing some video game-related stuff, which we'll get into in a little bit, but I was talking to someone about when I was traveling to Spain and how I wanted to go to Japan, and this was just today before we recorded, and I said, I do want to learn a little bit of the language before I go, because I don't want to feel like so much of a fish out of water when I'm there, and they read that as like me not liking a change in culture. And I'm like, no, it's just that I feel like I'm a burden to every single person I'm trying to communicate with. And I feel like a ding dong,
which you are.
I am.
Like there's just no way around it. Like the
plaster me next to a doorway and push my face every time you want to come in, because I'm a ding dong.
I like the idea that they push your face and then you walk over to the window and they're like, someone's here. And you're like, oh, and you just walk right back. And you're like,
what a great job.
It's like a Flintstones type job where, something
except
is
I'm
actually
not a
alive.
dinosaur.
Right. Yeah, no, I know. Just some of your viewpoints. Rich.
American.
Yeah, it was great. I'll talk about it as much as anyone wants to listen, but it's a really cool country.
Yeah.
It's everything you think. Food's awesome. It's clean as all hell. The transit system's incredible.
Yeah.
But you're right. You are a burden to people. Like transit system is a perfect example where you have your thing on your iPhone, your card, and so you go just tap it on, tap it off. And anytime that we'd make a mistake, like we've been drinking way too much, and then all of a sudden I'm like, we tap off and walk, and then you're walking, and there's huge stations, so you're just walking forever. Yeah. And then you get to another gate you're trying to exit, and you're like, the fuck? We just did that though, I thought. And so you have to go to the guy and go, I'm so sorry, I have to tap off. And he looks at you like he doesn't understand you, but he's annoyed by you.
Yes.
I'm like, yeah, okay. Let's figure this out. I've seen people like you before. So it was an awesome time. But yes, I did lots of video game things.
Yeah. What were some of your favorite things there?
I should have worn my Pokemon shirt. I bought a Pokemon shirt.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Describe the Pokemon shirt to us.
It's a black and white shirt stitched with Pikachu's face on it.
Stitch is not a Pokemon.
Oh, right. Okay. Lilo and Pokemon. No, it's funny how much it's not a stereotype to think that like video game culture is very ingrained to the general personality of the country. You get to the airport and the first thing
they're all nerds is what you're saying.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So many wedgies on this trip. Millions of them, perhaps. The first thing you see is Charizard, like on a piece of glass, and Pikachu's like, welcome to the country.
Oh, that's amazing.
And you're like, oh, wow, this is like
that.
not a real thing. Also, Pocket Monsters, I haven't seen that expression in a long time. And
they still say that out there?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Someone's got to tell them what it actually is.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, this is too bad. We're using their word and they're using ours. That's so weird. But yeah, it's, Mario obviously everywhere and all these stores in all these huge malls. I think the thing that blew my mind the most is that when you are on the surface level, and especially when you're in Tokyo, 37 million people, it's the most populous city in the world. It's the densest city in the world. But when you walk the streets, it's like any other city. You're looking at buildings and you're looking at streets and you're looking at boulevards and stuff. And you're like, yeah, okay, it's a city. I get this. The thing that blows your mind about Tokyo and stuff is every building is 13 floors high and everything on the floor is dense with retail shops and like everything's a mall. And then it goes 3 floors deep and 13 floors high. And so even though on the street, it looks like just a normal thing, every floor you get to, you're like, holy shit.
There's
it's like
just
stepping
so
through Narnia.
much to do.
You just can't believe it's every floor and then every building and then, things like that. So like, Mikey, I got you something.
Oh, I see.
It's just down over there.
If you want to see me open this little souvenir gift over here, you can go check us out on our YouTube. YouTube.com/podcast.
It says Nintendo Tokyo on it.
Even the bag is just Link on the bag. It's got Nintendo Tokyo. Now, was this purchased at the Nintendo store?
Yes, one of the many Nintendo stores they have. One of the many Pokemon centers they have. One of the Capcom stores everywhere.
Really?
And I'll tell my story about the arcades afterwards because we went to a bunch of arcades.
How do I open this?
I think there's just a piece of tape on it, so you rip through it.
Oh, I don't want to. It's a gorgeous bag. That's the thing. Can you hear it? Okay, there we go.
There you go.
Got
Nicely done.
No, Andrew.
Yeah.
I don't want it.
Yeah.
I don't want it.
We got to add to the studio.
I don't want this.
Yeah. It's Kirby.
It's a little Kirby.
Mikey's number one enemy.
He's not even, I don't even think about him at all.
Yeah. Oh, that's why your reaction was, oh no. Oh
Because
God.
he's worming his way back into my life. No, that is very sweet. I appreciate that. Now I have a new thing to beat the shit out of because my girlfriend and my dog are getting boring. Not joking.
Just drop kicking it routinely. You know, it's so funny. It's just when you walk through Nintendo,
It smells like Kirby.
Oh, does it? Yeah. Which is awful. Terrible.
Defeat.
You-
I know that smell well.
Every different type of Mario, every different type of suit, every different Yoshi, every different color and stuff like that. Yet I saw Kirby and I was like, well, we got to get that from Mikey.
That's amazing. No, I
Yeah.
do appreciate that. It is adorable.
He's
Kirby
so cute.
is adorable.
He is. Little feet.
Also, the little feet with the little shoes. This is like the size that I imagine Kirby being. It's about,
I think so.
it's a 6. I think Kirby canonically is like 13 inches high.
Size of your hand kind of thing. Or
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah. That's very sweet.
But yeah, like Capcom's still a huge presence, obviously, because of Street Fighter.
Yeah.
And going there right, kind of recently after the new Street Fighter game came out. So there's these arcades. They're kind of everywhere, but they're very different than North American arcades or what I'm used to. And in the way that there's not really stand-up stalls to do stuff. There's a lot of seated. It reminded me more of a casino.
Really?
Where it's like dark and people are smoking and everyone is very quiet.
Wow.
And just like sitting there and like very focused and not reacting at all to stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And I was like, well, maybe we'll just play a little bit of this and just getting swamped
Shit
so
kicked.
fast.
Yeah.
And just going like, very interesting.
I would be too afraid to play against anyone there.
Yeah. Whereas like you see a lot of traditional like retro games or like sitting on
Sure.
driving a car
Yep.
or doing stuff. The only ones that we saw that had peripherals that I thought were fun was there was like a Guitar Hero style game with a piano. So my player one really loved that.
Oh,
as a
hell
former
yeah.
piano player. And then the other one had these older traditional Japanese drums that you have to drum in beat with.
Cool.
And that was a lot of fun. But they're huge. They're like we're talking about. These are 6 stories.
Yeah.
And everything
An
is
arcade is 6 stories.
and this is a chain of them. I saw them
Jesus.
every 10 minutes. Like a huge popular chain of arcades.
Did you ever see the game? And by the way, if you haven't yet, check out on our Patreon.
Yes.
We have the we selected the best arcade cabinets that we possibly
Yeah.
could. We teased it on an earlier episode. We've got that up on our Patreon now. That was a very fun episode to do. Did you see the game that is the peripheral is like a finger that's putting its hands kind of like a gun?
I didn't. I know what you're talking about. No, I didn't see
And
it.
you're supposed to like poke it in someone's butt at
Yes,
the right time.
yes.
Yeah, what a great game.
Great game.
I
Great
want to
game.
play that so bad.
Oh, if I had seen that game, I would have played that game. Let's be real.
Isn't that kind of like a cultural thing in Japan too, where like you do the butt poke thing? I hear that's like kind of like a tap someone on the shoulder and they look the wrong way. It's like a jokester thing to do.
I don't know because maybe I didn't get close enough to the culture or people felt comfortable enough to do that to me. And that was very frustrating. If I find out that later, like, oh, everyone does it. I'm like, oh, that's such a disappointment.
It left me out of it.
Made people feel very uncomfortable.
Oh,
I
you
guess.
didn't pass by the kiosk at the airport?
Yeah.
Just poking butts.
Yeah.
Welcome to Japan.
It is funny that the way that, I don't know, sometimes we sensationalize certain parts of different countries. In Japan, it's like the number of people like, oh, do you see all those vending machines? I'm like, well, yeah, there's lots of vending machines. Like, underwear? I'm like, no, didn't see that. Like, or tentacle porn? Like,
Well,
no,
then you
what
weren't
is
going
a-
into the right place.
Yeah, 100%. I
think
clearly
that's-
I had the worst trip of all time.
Yeah,
That's
100%.
all I can say.
The vending machines, though, that thing is cool. That is cool. I love the number of like little collectibles, like that culture of just
Yes.
like little, and some of them being very valuable. You have to get them from those little machines that you like put a coin in, which are
Everywhere.
They're everywhere there. And in North America, it's basically just in like grocery stores,
Yeah,
and it's like
yeah.
like there's still Beanie Babies in there. Like
There are whole stores devoted to those.
Yes.
So it's
Yeah.
just wall to wall, 3 high of those things, which my player wanted was like, I'd have to like hold her hands back to be like, no. She's like, oh, I got to go in there. That being said, like every store, there was this really cool one called Toy Sapiens and Hot Toys. They were beside each other. And it's like the
Hot
most
Toys. They didn't have the tentacle porn there.
No. It's unfortunately Fire Like Hot. That's the logo.
Ah.
I saw a series of Fortnite toys and I was like, oh, wow. And I was brought me back to childhood kind of thing. I was like, oh, I kind of want one of these.
Wait, so how does a Fortnite toy work? Because Fortnite can be Alien, Fortnite can be Terminator.
For sure. But there are bases to certain popular
Okay.
ones like Peely, the banana.
Sure.
Or Agent Jones or something like that. And so there was a few of those. You could buy the bus, which is always,
Oh, cool.
kind of
Yeah.
thing, or whatever, like Slurp Juice and stuff like Witch's Shields. And I was like, oh my God. But yeah, like that. And then a series of like lifelike realistic dolls that are the size of my thigh that are $10,000. And you're like, but it's also creepy. They look real.
The
Like,
size of your thigh?
like it's a bust of
Oh.
a bust of like Tom Holland's head, but each hair has been individually placed, and
Holy
you're like
shit.
staring at it. And you're like, oh my God, it's kind of weird. Can you imagine having this in your house?
How many of those did you get?
5.
Okay, good.
Yeah. I got it for each Spider-Man of all time. Yeah.
Just Tom Holland.
Just 5 Tom Hollands.
The same ones, but you've kind of added like little like crow's feet as he ages a little bit.
There was you could also get there and take a picture with other Spider-Man and everyone's pointing at each other and then you be the other one and my player one's like, you want to do that? I'm like, I think we're done. I think we're done with this. I think we've done it. Guys. The pointing Spider-Man meme.
That's amazing. Well, while you've been gone, anything else that you want to add from your trip? Any
I'm sure lots will come up.
Sure. Yeah, it'll be you'll thread these stories in through as I'm just sitting here like, yeah, cool, great. No, you're in Japan. That's fucking awesome. Over the next few episodes.
Yeah, like in the next few episodes, I'll be like, Yoshis are real there, like or something like that, and you're like, whoa, wait, you didn't bring this up.
That wasn't the number one thing you brought up.
Yeah, no,
you brought me home a plush Kirby, and you could have brought me home the head of a Yoshi. Like, why the head?
Yeah, like a tauntaun. I just behead it and live inside of it.
Andrew, that is not what happens in the tauntaun scene.
They live inside of them, don't
they?
They
Don't behead them.
Well, they weren't hungry, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they were starving though, that tauntaun's head's right off.
Eating it from the inside out.
Or that's how I entered the tauntaun, and people are looking at me horrified. So like, we just cut open his belly. You die. You was like a water
see the
slide.
Zipper on the side. That's what tauntauns are meant for.
Yeah, that's another one with way too much money. Have you seen the tauntaun sleeping bags?
Oh yes,
and
yeah,
you're like,
I have. Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
I would get one of those for a camping trip, and then it would rain and it would be completely ruined. It's like, what is the actual point of this?
It would be actually cold, and it's like, well, this does nothing. Yeah.
No, while you've been gone, I've been gaming.
Okay.
I've been playing some games.
Great.
No big deal. One of the games that I've been itching to talk about, because we, in order for you to take this well-deserved time off, we had to get like 3 weeks ahead on recording, which we've talked about on the podcast before. I've been itching to talk about a game that I like to call, and I like to call it this because it's what it's called.
Oh, okay, good.
Dave the Diver.
Dave the Diver.
Andrew, I know everyone this year is talking about Game of the Year is Tears of the Kingdom.
Yes.
Tears of the Kingdom this. Tears of the Kingdom that.
Right.
Tears of the Kingdom the other thing.
Yeah.
Everyone loves Tears of the Kingdom.
That's what you've made clear, yes.
You know?
Yeah.
What are you playing?
TOTK, and you're playing DTD.
I'm playing DTD, Dave the Diver.
Dave the Diver, right?
Dave the Diver.
Like you just said.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, you're correct.
Yeah.
Dave the Diver.
Okay.
What a delicious treat this is, Andrew.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of you being in Japan, which we were just doing.
Are you having a stroke? What is happening right now?
No, I'm getting somewhere. The game consists of you diving as the titular Dave, the diver, collecting fish, and then coming up and serving it to people as sushi in a restaurant.
Oh, that's
so there's a real kind of moonlighter. I'll give credit to Ken from the Pixelated Thoughts podcast for this one for mentioning Moonlighter as the reference point. I used a couple different games to kind of give some direction as to what I would compare this game to. But essentially, there's some resource management. There's resource collection, and then almost like a base building. It's kind of Cult of the Lamb-ish, where you kind of go off on these ventures into the ocean. Each dive is kind of like a perpetually generated dive where you're trying to survive as long as you can. There's an air supply limit to how much you can carry. You catch fish, and then you bring it up and you bring it to the restaurant, and there's actually a mini game where you serve the sushi to people and make money so that you can buy new upgrades and dive down deeper and stay down longer and see new fish.
Oh, wow.
And there's also a really intricate story that's thread throughout the game, which I didn't expect. Bottom line is, the more shit like this happens, where there's a major release like a Tears of the Kingdom or a God of War or an Elden Ring, and I keep finding myself playing these cute little indie titles.
Yeah.
I think that's just the type of gamer I am now, and I have nothing but great things to say about Dave the Diver. Similar to last year, how I gave Case of the Golden Idol my game of the year in a year with a ton of great releases.
Yeah.
Dave the Diver is up there for me as like a potential game of the year. I don't know that it'll quite get it, but I think that there's something to be said about something that knows what it is and stays in its lane and sticks to it as much as Dave the Diver does. And that kind of makes it up. We talk all the time about what the game's intention was as opposed to what it could have been. And its intention was to be exactly what it is, and it fucking nails it. It's only out on Steam right now or on PC. I think they said it might be coming to Nintendo Switch, and if it is, Andrew, I gotta force you to get that game. I might buy it for you like you bought me this Kirby plushie.
Yeah, I would love to play Dave the Diver. That sounds fun. I like the restaurant element. I don't know. I like being on the water.
Yeah.
Water's nice. So, speaking of Japan, there's a restaurant in which you fish, and then you get the fish, and then you hand it off to the kitchen.
No way.
And I was like, this seems too barbaric.
No.
I was like, then I get friends with all these fish, and then I'm like, we're good friends. and I
Just
can't
because you
do it.
catch it means you're its friend?
That's a good point. That feels problematic in a way.
Yeah.
There's a power dynamic there that I don't really like. Power imbalance.
That's really cool, though. Now,
Yeah.
when you say you fish for these fish, by the way, why isn't hunting moosing or deering or bearing?
Mm-hmm.
Fishing is fishing.
Yeah, that's a
You
good
fish
point.
for fish.
Not animaling. Or
Animaling.
something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mammaling.
Mammaling. Mammaling.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I could
Pretty
could
cool.
imagine a couple.
Yeah,
other things
that's
that would
pretty
be.
awesome.
No. So is it like a tiny little pond that's like I'm picturing? You know that little game you had where there's like a little fishing line with a magnet on
Yes.
it. You just put it.
You're
down
not
and
very
there's a
far
fish.
off.
Yeah, it's
You're not
more.
very
It's
far
more
off.
like that.
Yeah, you're like on a little platform, and then around you is like a moat full of fish.
Yeah, that doesn't interest me as much.
No, it
You're
feels
making
like
me do more work than I'm comfortable with.
yeah, like give the fish a knife or something like that. Like something where it makes it feel more like sport.
Also, it's like when you go to a Red Lobster or something like that, which is in terms of classiness probably comparable to the place that you're talking to.
Honestly, yes.
Honestly, yeah.
Yeah.
And you go and they're like, "Which lobster do you want?"
Out of
and
the
I'm
tank.
Like, yeah, I'm like, I don't fucking care.
Well, honestly,
You
okay.
pick for me.
This is a very local thing. I don't care, but but it's kind of a famous restaurant. It's called Lobster Fisherman Clubhouse, and it's,
You 1,000% just made that up.
it actually might be in reverse or whatever the title is. It doesn't make any sense. It might be Fisherman Club Lobster. It
Are
doesn't
you
make any
having a
sense.
stroke now?
I honestly kind of feel like
Yeah.
I am, but they bring out the lobster before to show you. They're like, look at this lobster. You're going to eat it. And every time I've been there, which is great because it's a wonderful restaurant, and you're like, oh, I believe you. I believe it's a lobster. And they're like, you look at this prehistoric creature that
Yeah.
like is like holding on for dear life. That's like 40 pounds. You're like, oh, no, it's good. Just cook it.
That part I didn't find because I actually have eaten there. It's fuck now I can't remember. Lobster Fisherman.
Isn't that what I just said? Clubhouse.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
It is.
yeah.
I have eaten there. And that part didn't weird me out because I'm used to that from Red Lobster.
Sure.
The weirdest was when I was eating it and they brought out its family. They said this one's its kid and this is its wife, and they were crying. They had like little teardrop stickers on the lobsters.
I thought that was very odd.
Yeah.
They're reading its last will and testament.
Yes.
Its obituary in the Lobster Times.
Yes.
Which I thought was very cruel.
They cracked the mother's neck in front of the child, and they weren't even cooking the mother.
No, yeah, they're introducing the kid to its new foster parents, and you're like, oh boy. And then you're kind of more hungry, so maybe you're gonna eat the foster parents too.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible.
That sounds like a great restaurant, Andrew.
Dave the Diver, he probably runs that restaurant.
Dave the Diver probably does. No, a fantastic game, legitimately. I'm just, more and more, I'm finding that I'm gaming almost exclusively on my Steam Deck. I got Diablo 4 installed on my Steam Deck as well. I played just a little bit of that.
Okay.
I'll talk about that later because I don't think I've played enough with it to justify getting deep into it yet. But
I'm glad you're bringing it up because the number of people in my life, it feels like there's such a divide because Diablo's a huge game. It's
Yes.
out, whatever. Tears of the Kingdom, huge game, out. Less or so, Dave the Diver.
everyone's talking about Tears of the Kingdom.
Everyone's talking about Tears of the Kingdom.
It's Tears of the Kingdom this, they say.
Yeah, or Tears of the Kingdom that.
That! You've heard it too. It's not just me.
I have. It's the buzz. It's the word on the
It's
street.
the buzz all over the place.
And I have two separate friends in my life. And it feels like there's two.
That's not
I
many.
have two. Yeah, two people. I really hope they don't leave. It's really important that they're good. There's two groups in my life, and neither of those people talk about either game. It's either they come to me and go, "Are you playing Diablo?" And and I've never heard them talk about Zelda at all.
Yes.
Or they go like, "How's Zelda going?"
Yeah.
And then I'm like, "Have you played Diablo?" And they're like, "What?" So
Yeah.
there's nothing. There's like a line of demarcation, and no one's crossing.
I think it makes a lot of sense because I think a ton of people grew up playing Diablo 2 specifically of our generation, our era, our age group. And I think that I think it was such a life-changing experience for a lot of people that they see that as maybe their only through line to gaming. There's like another Diablo game. I will get back into gaming for this.
Right.
And that section of people probably wouldn't know anything about any other games like a Zelda or something like that. So it kind of makes sense. There are people at my gym who make fun of me because I play video games, and every so often
Well, you
they'll
shouldn't
like,
play video games at the gym.
well, listen, it's boring lifting weights. I don't want to do it anymore.
Between sets, you're like, got a Diablo.
I'm sitting down there. They're
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
are you still using this machine? And I'm like,
Yep.
yep.
And I'd really mind if you piss off, thanks. Then again, you meet those people that are like setting up ring lights and stuff like that, and you're like, okay.
Yeah, that's true too. That's
Cool.
true too. No, but they sometimes they'll humor me and be like, what are you up to this weekend? And they're like, you're gonna play some games? I'm like, yeah. They're like, what are you playing these days? And I'm like, I'm into Diablo 4 now. And this time a couple of them were like, oh, I'm actually playing that. People who have
Oh.
never related to me on the video game front before. So
There you go. See,
Yeah.
yeah, it's getting people back into video games. But
Yeah.
I'm excited to hear your thoughts when you get to end up playing a little bit of it.
I will give some thoughts, and I'm excited to talk more about that. I'm excited to talk more about some of the other games I've been playing, but I think it's about time, Andrew, that we kind of dig into the mailbag, because it's been a long time coming. We've got a lot of listener responses to some of our past episodes. We've got a lot of questions that have piled up. If you hear your name here, congratulations.
Congrats.
If you don't,
You're famous.
we still have a stockpile of questions to answer. But if you want to get your name in the bag, I think we'll have some fun with this. So we'll probably do it again. You can send us an email, theretrogradepodcast@gmail.com, or hit us up on any of our socials to send a question of your own.
Please, that'd be good. Yes, and say for the mailbag,
Say for the mailbag.
so we know to put it in the bag.
Spelled M-A-L-E.
We should print
B-A-G.
these out. It'd be fun to read them off. Like,
Oh, and then we can throw the cards.
yeah, throw the cards like David Letterman.
That'd be
Yeah,
nice.
Very cool.
So before I get into questions, Andrew, I want to get into a couple responses to some of the past episodes that we've done. We've done a lot of lists, and we've had a lot of responses, and some
Yeah.
of them have stood out. This one, we did the top 10 levels, our top 10 levels recently. Tor McDole at TOA McDole MCDOHL on Twitter gave their 10 episodes.
Okay.
In no particular order, I don't think, but 1-to-1 from Mario Bros 3, which is great.
Right.
The Garden from Mario 64, which we had on
fantastic.
there. Midgar from Final Fantasy 7 and Balam Garden from Final Fantasy 8. Balam Garden, I know you're not a big Final Fantasy fan.
No.
But that was huge for me. I love that place.
Can we talk about how Final Fantasy and they're on number 8? What the hell is that all about? Final? Nothing final
When is
about
the final going to happen?
Yeah, I feel like
They
it's
need
false
to tell us
advertising.
when the final's going to be.
Yeah, should be next fantasy.
Next fantasy. The penultimate fantasy.
Yeah, the penultimate fantasy.
Question mark.
Yeah.
The O's of the question mark.
Yeah.
No, this time
It's Final Fantasy, comma, maybe, question mark.
Granted, you then also have like all of the Halloween movies, and each of the subtitles are getting more and more definitive. Like,
Yeah.
no, for real this time.
Well, they did end the trilogy with a real dog shit movie, and it's Halloween Ends. And you're like, okay, well,
Wait, that wasn't a trilogy. There was way more than.
well, this series.
Oh,
This Blumhouse, Jamie Lee Curtis.
Oh,
return live.
okay. Jamie Lee Curtis.
Uh-huh.
In her world.
Yes.
At some point,
Yeah.
they gotta believe her when she says he's back.
Okay, that's the other thing too, is that she's a real dum-dum. Like, at least in these last movies, she's like, I'm prepared. He's coming back. He's going to try and kill me. Like, she seems ready, and she's trained,
Yes.
like, her whole life for this. And then, but in the end of the second movie, spoiler alert, I guess, she like kills him, and then she's like, "We did it," and
Yes.
walks off.
Yeah,
the thing.
yeah,
I would
yeah.
be sitting next to the body the whole time, like staring at it for weeks. I'd be holding a gun to its head.
I would cut off its head and keep the head with me always,
Yes, 100%.
just so I know it's still here.
I would quarter it like William Wallace
Yes.
and put it into 4 different parts of the country and see if it comes back together like Terminator 2 or
It'd
something.
be almost like It Follows. That would be a good version of Halloween. Like every time that the protagonist kills Michael Myers, eventually he's coming back.
Yeah, you're like in a forest or something
Yes.
like that, and you're like, it's leg, but it's standing upright. Like it's got to be like,
It's its hand. No, that's just Thing from Adam's Family. Yeah.
it's hopping. Get it.
Ballard
Sorry, keep
Garden
going. Yes.
Facility from GoldenEye, which was a good
absolutely.
one. I'm gonna save my favorite one for last. Metal Man stage from Mega Man 2, Tanker from Metal Gear Solid 2, which I agree that's the one that the demo was based on. The Mansion from Resident Evil 2, HQ from Suikoden 2, and and Dojo, the Dojo, sorry, from Parappa the Rapper.
Oh, okay.
Another good one.
Yeah.
But my favorite pick that I don't know how it escaped us, I guess because this is too clever for either of us to think of, The Ring from WCW versus NWO Revenge.
That's a great
That's fucking
one.
fantastic, isn't
Oh,
it?
that is so good.
Yeah. I love that. I love that one.
Oh, I love it because I'm mad.
yeah.
That's a really good answer.
It's a really good answer.
Yeah, good job.
Another response that I did find on our Hardest Levels episode over on YouTube.
Hardest Levels.
We have Smazoma on YouTube, and I bring this one up for a reason because I wanna say a little bit more about them.
Okay.
Said Iragian Nights from the from Aladdin, which obviously Arabian Nights. But Smazoma reached out to me as an advocate of NHL 94, a huge fan of the franchise, and someone who actually helps put on an annual tournament for
Whoa.
NHL 94.
That's cool.
And it's happening this year, this September in Toronto at Free Play, which is a barcade in the area. It's called King of 94. King of94.ca is where you can get your tickets.
Cool.
It's a large tournament. They've got an SNES version and a Genesis version, but it's been great communicating with him back and forth. His name's Michael, which makes him a better person than most people.
So, yeah.
Just talking about NHL 94 and our histories with it and what we love about it. That's been a ton of fun. So if you're interested in that at all, or you just want to learn about NHL 94, there's also a great documentary that you can find linked to from king of94.ca as well. So I wanted to give him a little bit of a shout out because he commented on the video, and then we also got talking about NHL 94, which
sounds like a really cool thing.
in my opinion, greatest sports video game of all time.
Right. Absolutely. It's such a good game.
Okay, so let's get into some questions, Andrew.
Okay, let's get into some questions.
So this one, I'm going to read them off as we go, and then we can just kind of get into it. Some of them are a little bit longer than others because, as it turns out, podcast listeners like to wax poetic in their questions.
You talk a lot. Now you're going to hear what I have to think.
It's funny because every time you listen to a podcast where they're asking for questions, they're like short and to the point. Submit short and to the point. But in a lot of these cases, I've gotten to know some of these people because I do like communicating back and forth over email with them. So Chris S from Vancouver says, this was through our email as well, the retrogradepodcast@gmail.com. I'm old like you, dweebs, first of all.
Okay. Wow.
Chris,
coming in hot there.
A lot of podcast listeners love to insult you right off the bat. Just show that they're cool.
Assert their dominance.
I'm old like you, dweebs. I remember playing some styles of games for the first time and thinking it was going to change the way I'd play games forever. Like I'd found a new favorite mechanic or genre, but for whatever reason, some of those have aged poorly, if not aged out of my life completely. What are some gaming mechanics or genres which you originally liked but feel haven't aged well, either personally or in general?
Yeah. You know, it's so funny that I think I keep doing this, and I'll do this till the day I die, in a scant 5 years probably, is that I keep watching, no, sooner? Okay, cool.
Didn't I predict your death?
Yeah, you did predict my death. It was like, you have a date in mind. I'm really glad I don't remember, so I'm not counting down the days.
I think it was 2 years ago, and I said 2 years, so fingers crossed for me, because that would be a big, I've got money down.
Yeah. And also you have a solo show. That's pretty good.
Ooh. Or Chris S can join me.
Yeah, that old dweeb. You can, until the day I die, I will watch new video games, especially with new systems, and go, wow, can't look better than this.
Yes.
How many fucking times have I said that in my life?
Yeah.
If every console comes out and I go, how does it get better than this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that's like definitely something that will age. But I think the genre in my mind is the fighting. Is fighting games.
Oh, okay.
I see. Yeah. When you and I were growing up, it was just you side scrolling two sides. You jump on a fixed frame of a screen, and then you're like, hey, let's make this 3D.
Yeah.
And we're like, awesome, that's totally cool.
Yeah.
And then we quickly realized that's not awesome.
Yep.
And now games have completely gone back to a flat screen again.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
It seems like 2D is just the method of choice for fighting games. In terms of like specific, like never mind genres for me for now, because I'll touch on that a little bit later. But
sure.
In terms of a specific mechanic that I fucking loved when I first saw it, and now I think it's a little bit obnoxious, especially in shooting games, when you shoot at an enemy and a number comes off to show the amount of damage. I'm just so much more aware of the addictive mechanics of some games.
Interesting.
That I'm like, I know this is just meant to be a dopamine release for me.
Yeah.
And I'm not okay with that anymore. I'm like, the gameplay should be enough to hold it on. I don't want to feel compelled to see a number go up and have that be the reason why I'm enjoying this encounter.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. Even though I think when done right, that's still fun. I don't know.
It can be. No,
it's like an old school thing.
Yes.
Now.
Yes, yeah. now it is. I think one of the ones that really got me was like Borderlands does that.
Yeah.
And that's a real, you start off seeing like 2, 5, 20, 50, and then it's like 400. And you're like, holy shit.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So that's always been one that I think I have had fun with. I think I'm a little bit less into it now. It's not that I don't like it, but I think I can definitely do without it in a way where I would actively seek it out. I remember there was one game I was watching. Maybe I don't think it was Battlefield 2, but there was one game I saw a trailer for and it had the numbers coming off. And that's the reason I bought the game.
Oh, wow.
And I think I ended up enjoying the game regardless, but it was just a weird thing for that to be it, you know?
Yeah.
Another one, I was thinking about games like Assassin's Creed. Assassin's Creed has a lot of mechanics, I think, started off really good and then kind of aged poorly. Like, for example, the idea of scaling walls.
Yeah.
Remember when the original Assassin's Creed came out? It was like you can climb anything, and there's like little handholds. You know, climb this. Jumping into hay is another one from like a very tall place, and it like felt really cool at first. One button assassinations, and then it got me thinking like, what is it about these things that I find have aged poorly? And it's things that look cool but aren't mechanically fun.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like climbing up a wall in an Assassin's Creed game is pressing a button.
Yeah.
And then just walking towards it, and you're climbing up it.
Yeah. I've also found that like when you run along the rooftops and stuff, or you're hopping between beams or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's so seamless that when it doesn't work, you're like, fucking game.
Yeah.
Like you're having to do so little already. You have to just assume that the game fucked up.
It's just going to work for you.
Yeah. You know what? Funny you say that, just because I wonder if that Batman, Arkham Asylum, Spider-Man type fighting style will age poorly because you just eventually are like, button.
Interesting.
Button.
So I actually had that written down as a mechanic that hasn't aged poorly, and I think actually works really well.
Okay.
This wasn't something Chris asked, but I wanted to add it as like, you know, some things have stood the test of time because they're just good game mechanics. I called it the superhero fighting style.
Yes.
And for some reason, it's just always worked for me. Now, have I played enough games that it won't get stale? I don't know, but we've had so many. And of all the games like Assassin's Creed, Spider-Man, Ghost of Tsushima to a large degree, all these kind of open world games that incorporate this type of fighting style, you would think like quick time events, how those have aged out. Speaking of another mechanic that's gone by the wayside, that they would have changed it up by now.
Sure.
And I the fact that they haven't made me think like maybe that is worth keeping. Maybe it is a satisfying gameplay style because it's rhythmic. It requires skill. It gets increasingly complicated as the game goes on, which means you're always getting better and better. Like in Batman, you get a different button press modifier to do a new gadget or something like that. Yeah, like Spider-Man, all that. So it feels like it's all of that, and it also looks great because they can animate it properly, and the parry mechanic usually fits with it. So, the last thing I would say of something that has aged poorly, and it's kind of encompassing all that stuff, is what I want to call cinematic exploration. So like an Uncharted game, you know, not to harp too much on like Assassin's Creed, but in Uncharted, remember the first time you like climbed up a mountain face? And you're like jumping from place to place, and then you really start to see the matrix in it and realize you're basically just jumping from like different, there's no risk to it. It's just, it may as well be a quick time event, right? Because you're just, where's the next handhold? I'm jumping there. There's no way this can go wrong. Totally. It's just, yeah,
I know exactly what you're meaning. And actually, when you were talking about Assassin's Creed, my mind went to Uncharted, where I was like, you know, like in this beautiful mountainscape, especially in the last couple of games where the graphics look really good. Yeah. You could tell where you're supposed to be jumping because it looks so standing out. And you're like, okay.
Well, in the first one, and I'm not a game developer, a designer. I don't know how to fix this, but I remember in the first one, it was like, I'm pretty sure it was like glimmering edges, and that's how you knew where you can go. Stray did a good job of, even though it doesn't really make sense in the world. Remember Stray, the cat? Anywhere you could go was kind of orange. It had like an orange color to it. And while it doesn't make sense narratively, it looked better than a glimmering, shiny thing.
Totally.
You know?
Totally. Yeah. Like it's a little more flat and a little more organic, even though you're right. It doesn't make much sense, but it doesn't stand out that way. So yeah.
Any other mechanics or genres or anything like that?
I can't really think of anything, but I think you named some really good ones there. The QuickTime event thing too.
Yeah.
Man, that was such like a huge predominant thing. And then now if it comes up, you're like, oh my God.
100%.
You know, I can't, seriously, there's nothing we can do about this.
Yeah.
You know?
And thankfully it doesn't like Resident Evil 4 remake not having QuickTime events when the original had a ton of them was a great nod to the fact that it's like, it served its purpose back then. We don't need to do it anymore.
Yeah.
And that as kind of like a side mechanic, I've mentioned this before, mashing buttons. Fucking, I hate doing that in games. And that's my biggest negative thing to say about Dave the Diver is there's a lot of that. When you're like, if you've harpoon gunned a fish, and there's like different ways you have to reel them in, and one of them is like mashing a button or like wiggling your joystick or something. And I'm like, this sucks. It's obnoxious to the people around you. I don't like doing it. It's just no one, I'm assuming, likes that whole like that like neurotic kind of.
It feels like a natural thing where you have a button, so you're like, well, let's see how many times you can press it. When I was in Japan, we went to Disney Sea. And there's a ride there called Toy Story Mania. Which you are shooting a gun kind of thing, or a light gun at a screen. And so it's all kind of like based on carnival games. So like ducks are going by,
Sure.
you gotta like
Sure.
shoot things. But it's a rope pull mechanic. So you pull a rope and you let it go, and it kind of shoots out like
cool.
like what like an air gun
But
would look
it's
like.
a light gun.
But it's a light gun,
Okay,
right?
okay.
So there's nothing come out, but you have to pull a rope and do things. And my player one was killing me, like getting through the game because the little screen's on there, and I'm like, oh my god, you're killing me. And then at the end, it was like an unlimited time thing limited time, but like it was all rapid fire.
Sure.
And I am just cranking on this rope. And a lot of preparation for that one. I'd been practicing
At
for
a
a long
kid in front of all those children too.
Well, no, there's no children. It was pretty private.
Okay.
And I caught up and beat her. And at the end, I'm like, it's not fair. My whole life has been preparing me for this between video games and other stuff. I was kind of like that. It just reminded me of the tapping button motion of just like, okay, like almost there, kind of thing.
I like that. I like that.
It was good.
Andrew, before we get to our next question,
Yes.
I have an announcement to make.
Oh.
And it's for you. And it's been something that I've been meaning to bring up so many times on this podcast, at least for the last like 6 or 7 weeks. When we watched the trailer for Top Gun Maverick years ago, we came up with call signs for one another on this podcast. You came up with late night for me. This is like now urban legend almost on the podcast. We talk about it all the time. A lot of people still bring up late night, and your name is Jin.
Yeah, Jin.
Which is great. And I'm not admitting that it's not.
Okay.
But I've figured out
a better one.
I figured out another one.
Okay.
Which isn't better, but is another option for you.
I am really excited to hear what this is.
Andrew, this one may be better than late night.
Whoa, it's just saying something.
Because late night is great.
Late night's a good one.
I proposed to the jury.
Mm-hmm.
They all decline my proposal. I say, shit, I'm going to be single forever. Because I proposed marriage.
Yeah.
So I'll propose this to you.
Yeah.
Parlay.
Now,
it works because you talk.
Mm-hmm.
It works because you love gambling.
I do. I love gambling.
And it works because you like to connect things.
And a parlay is like a fight, isn't it? Like you parlay.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Or
if you're a fighter pilot, that would work. A parlay is great. I love
There we go.
parlay.
Okay, so we'll stick with gin, but you can have parlay. I
You're
already
still gonna
paid
stick
for the
with
helmet.
one you don't like.
I already
But
paid for the helmet, Andrew. So Andrew is now parlay. Let it be
for the
christened. Okay, we've got another question coming in here. This is from Wallace M. From jolly old England. A hop,
Wallace!
skip, and a jump across the pond, Andrew.
does he have a dog? Does the dog name Gromit?
Oh, Wallace and Gromit. Is he wearing the wrong trousers?
Are we talking to the Wallace?
Wallace?
The clay guy?
I think Gromit's dead, though, by the way.
Oh, what? Why?
Well, it's that movie came out years ago.
That's true.
1920.
Yeah, that dog would be
25
35 years old, maybe. Look at
That
that.
dog's older than us.
Wow, that dog is not looking
Not
good.
aging well.
No.
It looks like literal clay. It is. It is.
It is?
Jesus.
Now, next you're going to tell me all those chickens are dead.
Oh, no.
No,
The
they're still
wrong
good.
coop. Or flew the coop. What was that one?
Chicken Run?
Yeah. Chicken Run.
Yeah.
Yes.
Chicken
yes.
Run? Okay.
Wallace M. from jolly old England says, hey, D-pads, love the podcast, and I've been listening. See, okay, first of all, Chris, that's how you start a question.
Yeah, way to go, Chris. We need a little English, politeness there.
Hey, D-pads, love the podcast, and I've been listening since pretty much the very beginning.
Oh, thank
I've
you.
always related to your conversations because I'm more of a casual gamer. I'm not. I'm a hardcore gamer. That's me, Mikey, who likes to talk about video games in the same breath I use to talk about movies, TV shows, and other forms of pop culture. That said, I want you to use one breath to talk about multiple mediums. If you could choose one video game developer to direct an existing movie franchise and one director to oversee the development of an existing video game franchise.
Oh, wow.
What would it be? Bonus points if you say it in one breath.
I immediately would want to do, because I think this probably may be inspired by The Last of Us. And,
Yeah, I would assume so.
And
yeah,
having the creators of the show, of the game work on the show, which I think that's a double-edged sword, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't always think that's like always a great idea.
No, neither do I. I
'Cause
think they're
then
two
it-
different mediums for a reason. I
Absolutely.
think the fact that Neil Druckmann did such a good job with The Last of Us
Yeah.
is an exception, not the rule, potentially.
I would agree with you. And I would do the same thing too. But like, it's when the game naturally gets transitioned into another media, they might be like, well, we want to change some stuff. And you're like, no. And
Yeah.
You're like, well, whatever. I think immediately my mind jumps to Ken Levine and just thinking about, BioShock and,
Yep. That's a great one.
the way that they created the game so cinematically in a time where, much like Neil Druckmann, wasn't the emphasis, makes me think that he would have a good eye for design, which is really so essential in TV or movies, whatever they would want to do, hopefully a movie.
Yeah.
That's my initial one. What are you thinking?
Well, do you have a movie franchise that you're thinking of for them? Because the question was original, which might be tough to since we're put on the spot a little bit. But do you have a franchise that Ken Levine might be able to direct?
So franchise like
assign him to?
IP that's already out there. Yeah. You know what? I would want to see him do. Yeah. You know what? I would want to see him do Terminator. I think
I was gonna say Terminator.
No way, really?
I don't know why, but I was.
I just think the Terminator franchise as a whole is just stalled right to the ground.
Yeah.
And there's so much there that could be so good. And I just think with the, if you want to make the big daddy, the Terminator kind of thing of this like dominant force that you're very scared of and you got to be quiet, but there's still a story of life around it.
Yeah.
I think that'd be probably a good, transition or a parallel.
I love that. Yeah. I speaking of Terminator, I was going to say that I think someone who realistically a director that could take on a video game franchise would be James Cameron.
Yeah.
I think James Cameron he's so technologically sound and he would take it he would take 20 years to make it. And a lot of his movie development timelines have been 10, 15 years or something like that, which in AAA gaming now, that's kind of how long a game takes. So he'd have the patience for it. James Cameron, in terms of what I'd like to see him do, I might have to come back to that one. But from a game development standpoint, the name that's always thrown around is like Hideo Kojima.
Yeah.
As someone who could probably direct a movie. And I almost don't want to say that one because he almost already has with Metal Gear. I bet you Tim Schafer of Psychonauts and Monkey Island.
That's a good one.
Because the way that he tells a story as well is often very, very funny. I think you could almost get like a Judd Apatow movie that Tim Schafer could assign himself to and have some success with it.
I think some absurdist Wes Anderson type thing he could really do.
Oh,
well.
That's great.
Just something with a really unique look to it. And then the dialogue's, really snappy and stuff like that. I think the other one I was thinking about would be, I was thinking of two directors. I think if you give Jordan Peele a video game, I think it'd be really interesting. Oh man,
that would Alan Wake. Give Jordan Peele an Alan Wake
100%.
Game.
I just think he's just got such a good perspective on things, and it's not that he's just one note. The way that they created new cameras and stuff for Nope, it's like he's clearly got an eye for technology. And it's like, no, I got this idea. We really gotta just stick to this, good or bad. And then the other one is, I just think Ryan Coogler's a very good director.
He was going to be my next one. And you know what I was thinking? Fight Night. Give him a Fight Night or something like that. Because I'm thinking Creed, even though Creed isn't necessarily his best movie, but it just seems like he's really good at dealing with that kind of grit and he did such a good job with Creed. Where I'm like, give me a good storyline in a Fight Night game.
Yeah.
Oof, I would eat that all up.
I like that. No, there you go. That's a great question.
That's a great one. I love that. A similar question from Alice A. Not sure where Alice is
Sorry,
from.
Alice. Wallace already asked.
Sorry, you can't come back,
that's
Alice.
It. Sorry, Alice.
Go away. But a similar question. Okay. What is in your mind, the best movie that hasn't been made into a video game and the best video game that could be made into a movie?
Oh, okay.
I mean, I guess we kind of touched on that a little bit. Specific to the franchises. I know you've already talked about BioShock as a game that should absolutely, surprising it hasn't already been turned into a movie. But
absolutely. I think that one's the biggest layup because
although it is coming to Netflix, isn't it? I thought like as a series or something like that.
I've heard a lot, like I feel like that getting mentioned every once in a while and whatever. And Metal Gear Solid in the same one, you're like, oh, okay, I'll believe it when I see it.
What's happening with those?
I feel it's like what was it? Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
Like they're going to fight. I'm like, I'll believe it when they're standing in a ring together. But yeah, I think that one, I'm trying to think of like a really good movie that I would want to see be made. And I think it's more in the air of like the Warriors. I don't want to just take something like you're like, oh yeah, well, of course.
That's true. Something that would allow for enough integrity, or enough leeway, like it would give enough rope to really play around with. Like the Warriors was a cult classic, so you could kind of take the universe that was implied and make enough changes without upsetting too many people. Yeah, like you can only expand on it. Yeah. Whereas something that is too strict a demand for what it has to be might find itself handcuffed a little bit in terms of how different it might be able to stray from some of the source material.
Right.
Yeah.
I think, because it has to have some level of violence, just, inherently in video games, there is violence. Yeah. And I think if you're going to make it on a big scale, it has to have some kind of interactivity. And usually that results in physical violence or guns or something like that.
Yeah.
You could always create like a fun indie game that's like, it's Pulp Fiction. You're
sure.
Like, oh, interesting. Sure. That's cool. But I think if you did something more like, I think it'd be really cool. You mentioned James Cameron earlier.
Yep.
If you did Titanic, the video game, And I
Oh
mean
my God.
that you are a person that is on the Titanic and can explore room to room and like have this whole story of like
Interesting.
adventure and finding things as the ship might go down. And then you got to, it's more like a adventure and escape and stuff like
Yep.
that. And then while doing that, you could do the modern version while you're in a submarine, hopefully not with a remote control. And
A Mad Catz controller.
yeah, Mad Catz control is you get crushed to death, seemingly, in the most beautiful example of hubris in the world. But
that is the modern story of Icarus.
It
Like,
really-
what else can be? Like,
and then they're like, "How do you die?" I'm like, "Oh, so it just gets crushed into a can," and you're like, "Oh, fun." But then you could do the modern day thing where you're like walking around the old, your submarine, around the wreckage.
Yeah.
which I think would be kind of beautiful in a video game, and the closest most of us could get to it.
that's a great idea. And I think there's almost another step. Now we're getting into our your game is great territory.
Oh, yeah,
We're
yeah.
considering it, but the idea of a Titanic game where you could play not only as the same person every time, but maybe you choose your status. Like, are you a cook? Are you
Yeah, do you work
a
there?
passenger?
Yeah, yeah.
Are you the captain? Are you a guard? And try to find your way off of it. Like, just the number of branching storylines you could get there. I think that'd be really
That'd
neat.
be so fun if you're the captain. And then
You just avoid.
yeah, and then you land safely, and you're like, you just changed history.
That'd be unbelievable.
Yeah. You get there and it's like a British flag on the Statue of Liberty. You're like, what have I done? Oh, the world. Did you ever hear the story that James Cameron and Bill Paxton found out about 9/11 after? Did you ever hear the story?
No.
Okay. So they went into a submarine and went to the wreckage of the Titanic, for lunch, literally.
Yeah.
And because that's his life. And so he's just taking around doing this in 2001. And they come back up and have to explain to James Cameron and Bill Paxton that 9/11 just happened. And there's video footage of it happening. And like Bill Paxton's turning around going like, and then another plane hit the tower. And James is like,
What the fuck?
It is one of the strangest internet videos I've ever seen in my life.
That's like there was like a philosophy concept where it's like if you are on a spaceship and it's just you in a capsule and you leave Earth and Earth just gets disintegrated, do books still exist or something? Or like the concept of things being absent to you while you're away from something and being completely unaware. It's like almost like a Schrodinger's cat kind of situation where it simultaneously has and has not happened. That's just such a, you go down into a sub and come back and the world has changed would be such a, I'd be like, did we enter a different universe?
Totally. Oh, it's, or the what is the ship where you change it part by part and you're like,
Oh,
so you
yeah,
leave
yeah,
and
yeah,
you're
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
I know the books. You're like, yeah, but do you like,
Yeah.
know,
The concept exists,
Yeah.
but they don't. Like,
yeah,
what is it?
exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Okay, so let's go. We don't want to go too much longer, so we may have to push some of these to another episode. But I've got one. I
These
think
have been good.
Yeah, some of these have been.
Yeah, really
some
good.
of these have been good.
So, yeah, Ryan.
I've got one that I wanted to make sure that we get to.
Okay.
And unfortunately, there's no name on it, just an email address, which I'm obviously not going to give away. And then if we have time, maybe we'll do one more. But this is one that I definitely wanted to make sure we do, because it's a good retrospective of the podcast in general.
Sure.
Thanks for doing the job, they say. Thanks for doing the job of ruining your own childhood so that I don't have to. Over the years, has there been a biggest letdown for a game you expected to love but truly didn't? Anonymous sender, there have been many.
There's been a lot. It's actually picking the right one is the harder challenge.
So obviously being put on the spot, maybe you can't think of some of the specifics, but I read this one beforehand and I went through and got some examples.
Okay.
So let's talk if there's any off the top of your
Sure.
head, and then I'll find some of the biggest discrepancies and we can get into it afterwards.
Echo the Dolphin.
Echo the Dolphin.
Yeah.
I thought you liked Echo a little
I
bit.
did, and I still do, but I think that was like a one where I had to fight for it and I felt bad.
Yeah, okay, that's
Yeah.
fair. I remember Parappa the Rappa being one of those
Yes.
that I was like, we were talking about before we recorded it, and I think we did it pretty early on in our run. I think it was episode like 18 or something like that. And we're like, there's no way this is going to be bad.
Yeah.
This game has to be good.
So
I know
simple.
it's going to be good.
Yeah.
It's straightforward. We love the music, and that game just flat out didn't work.
No.
It just didn't work. And I to this day I wonder if it was because we got it in the PlayStation Store as like the remake, and I'm like, maybe the remake just doesn't work properly. Like maybe the timing was off,
Yeah,
but it felt
yeah.
like when a sequence would work or when it didn't was up to the game
Yeah,
and had nothing to do with when we actually input buttons in it.
Yeah. Super Ghoulies and Ghosties too.
Oh,
It
okay,
was-
yeah.
I really liked that game
Yeah.
when I was a kid. And I'm a better gamer now than when I was a kid
Sure.
for sure. But yet it was so aggressively hard
Yeah.
that it was really hard to appreciate all the other things because it has this great art style. And I love all these little qualities of like getting down to your underwear from a knight's
Yep.
armor and like all these little touches. But it was so hard that it was hard to appreciate all the other stuff.
And hard for the wrong reasons. There are some games, Ninja Gaiden being one that we went back to play, that was
great.
so surprisingly fun in spite of its difficulty, because it gave you the controls that you would hope for in a game like that.
Yeah.
And when you lost, it really felt like your fault. Super Ghoulies and Ghosties, as we like to call it, was difficult in the sense that it really limited your movement, especially when it came to jumping in different directions. And I just found that obnoxious and frustrating, like limiting in an unnecessary way to make the game not only more difficult, but also less fun as a result. So that one I definitely agree with. It didn't feel out of place when we were first playing it as kids, but it felt much harder to get into as adults.
Yeah, like it didn't allow you to get into it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, which,
exactly.
You know, it really hurts.
It was more abrasive. So here's some of the
What did
examples.
you have?
So Parappa the Rappa was on there. We gave that one a 6 in the retro score, a 1 in the current score. These are combined scores. And keep in mind, if you're relatively new to the podcast, we would give the game's rankings out of 4 bits for the past and 4 bits for the current score, each of us. So for a total of 8 possible for each of them.
Okay.
Star Fox 64.
Oh yeah.
The retro was a 6 total, because of course it was phenomenal.
Yeah,
but was it? Current score was a 2.
Oh,
yeah.
Jesus.
And I remember that. I remember it not feeling like I expected it to. I remember it feeling a little bit more restricted and a little bit slower and a little bit less exciting. WCW versus NWO Revenge. Do you remember going back and playing this one?
I actually don't. I have no memory of this.
This one I'll say before I give the score.
I do remember
this one deserves a revisit for a couple reasons. Because later on in our podcast, we went back to play No Mercy, which is a phenomenal fucking game. So good. And we got used to the controls, which are similar to the WCW versus NWO controls, but that took some doing. When we did it, the game was fun and enjoyable. When we were playing WCW versus NWO Revenge, we had like 4 or 5 people in studio. It was, I think they were all drinking. We were trying to do our jobs.
It was chaos.
It was chaos.
It was chaos. We're trying to narrate and people are just yelling.
It was probably one of the most unlistenable episodes we have in our whole catalog.
Maybe that deserves a replay then.
I think it might. I think we may have to do that one at some point.
Remember that game.
It was a great game, but in this episode, we gave it a 6.5 in the retro score, a 2 in the current score, which is just undeserved. Final Fight was one that surprised me. 6.5 in the retro score, 2.5 in the current score. Yeah. Another one where it's just that side-scrolling beat 'em up.
Yeah.
I think we really struggled, especially early on in the podcast, getting used to the pacing of some of these older games, and this one was a lot slower than we remember it.
That makes sense.
But shout out to Hager for just being a big
Mayor
beefcake.
Yeah,
Mayor Hager. Midnight Rescue. Do you remember doing this one?
Oh yes, the kids game.
The kids game.
Yes.
Where it was like a learning game. We were convinced there was no way it was going to be bad. I remember talking about it. We're like, we know what this game is. It's just going to be finding robots, piecing together mysteries, solving problems. Yeah. We gave it a 7 in the retro score. Deservedly so. It was a great game as a kid. 2 in the current score.
That's a big drop.
Which was a massive drop. And then one of the biggest drops we've had as well, maybe the biggest one on this list actually, Ski Free.
Oh, yeah.
A 6.5 in the retro score, a 1 in the current score. Ski Free being one of those like bundled in games on Windows.
Yes.
And, with like Solitaire and Hearts and Chips Challenge and the like. Yeah. And a game that was just unplayable beyond 2 or 3 rounds in its modern day.
Oh yeah, it was awful. We couldn't figure out, like, how does the Abominable Snowman not get you? And we were just figuring it out. I remember also kind of a bigger fight about Perfect Dark.
Oh yeah,
like, I love it, and I think I still do love it. But like that was one of my favorite games growing up. And then we were kind of playing and left a little cold.
Yeah, Perfect Dark was tough as well because it was, I think back when we played it when it first came out, we were used to those GoldenEye style controls. Mm-hmm. Now we're not used to the GoldenEye controls. However, going back and playing GoldenEye, we at least have the nostalgia of playing GoldenEye. Going back and playing Perfect Dark, I don't think from a sentimental standpoint, it has the same appeal to it.
Yeah.
So I didn't feel like I was getting enough back compared to when I'd go back and play GoldenEye. I could just enjoy the sounds and the music and the graphics, and I'd be brought right back to my childhood. By the way, coming up soon on this podcast, we're doing an interview, which we can finally say, with the author of the Boss Fight Games book, GoldenEye, which is basically a complete retrospective on the development of the game. That's coming out soon. And we're super pumped for that one.
Yeah.
So keep an eye out. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Absolutely. But yeah, no, I think those are the ones that were the biggest drops.
Yeah.
Give it some thought. If I think anything else, I'll probably put it on Twitter. But yeah,
Definitely. Well,
or
that's
Threads.
Speaking of billionaires fighting over.
Why do I have to download another fucking app? God damn
I was
it.
honestly so excited for the fact that Twitter was dying because I'm like, there's one less social media thing I have to pay attention to. And now they're like, but Threads. And I'm like, but fuck you. I don't want to start again.
Sounds like a nightmare too. Like they're tied to your Instagram account, and then you can't separate them. And like,
well, that's everything Meta does
know.
in the Oculus that I have,
Oh, yeah.
or the not the Oculus. What do they call it now? Jesus Christ, the Meta Quest,
Oh,
as
okay.
they call it. Now you cannot play with it unless you're logged into your Facebook account,
Ugh.
which is so shitty. It was not always the case.
I know. I loved that day, whenever, depending on when this episode comes out, but the day that Threads came out and everyone downloaded it, and everyone's like, you know what? It's pretty good. I'm like, do we all forget that we don't like Facebook?
Yeah.
Like not even as a company, but just the use of it is kind of shitty.
100%.
And so you're like, yeah, that's the same company, though.
Yeah, I don't want to start getting more invested into social media, especially a format that I just feel like I don't like anymore.
Yeah.
I don't want to re-up on that.
No, I didn't download it because somebody showed, like, I saw a screenshot of it, and it just seems like a meme account thing. And you can't not follow people. Like, or you follow people, not follow people, but like, you can't just only see the people you follow.
Oh, really?
They still insinuate like Jake Paul or like fuck Jerry or something.
You
like
get to follow Jake Paul and fuck Jerry?
Yeah, well, I
Hang
do.
on a sec. Vamp for a bit. I'm gonna go.
Yeah,
download
you can
Threads
download
quickly.
Threads. Yeah, okay.
I got to see what new Bitcoin offerings Jake Paul has.
Yeah. Do you remember spaghetti? And to like post like that, and you're like, what the fuck is this?
No, for real. Who did this?
Yeah.
I fucking hate that so much.
Who do you think has a bigger penis? And you're like, oh man.
Oh, that's good.
And then I was like, oh yeah, wait, I gotta participate in this poll.
Hey.
The poll is that's
Well done. Well, look, Andrew, I don't want to take. I don't want to go too far into this one because we're at about an hour. That's a
Okay.
good amount of time, and we got a ton more questions left. But that means that we'll be doing more episodes like this.
Yes.
So send your questions in if you didn't hear us answer yours. If you did hear us answer yours, thanks. Reach out to us. Give us a little thumbs up.
Yeah.
Reach out to us again on if you have any more questions. Who knows? But love doing this.
And I promise you, put more in. There's a ton there on Mikey's screen that we didn't go through, and we're gonna get to them soon. So I promise next time we do this, we'll go through them faster. So
Yeah,
we'll get
maybe
more done.
we definitely had to take some time to talk about Andrew's experiences in Japan and my experiences with Dave the Diver in the midst of literally everyone talking about Tears of the Kingdom. I had to take some time to talk about.
No, you made that clear.
But like when you were in Japan,
Yeah.
when you went up to someone and you were like, "Hi, I'd like to eat at your restaurant."
Yeah.
Were they just like, "Have you played Tears of the Kingdom?"
Yeah, they were playing Tears of the Kingdom. I had to look up and go, oh, what? And I'm like, restaurant, seat. Can I get a seat?
Can I
please?
get one? And they're just
And they're
pointing
like-
at lobsters and they're like bashing it with hammers.
Yeah, you're like,
This
what the fuck?
place is so weird.
God, is this Dave the Diver's restaurant? What is this?
When you cook, when you order meals in those restaurants in Japan, do they go into the kitchen and then as the door opens up, you just hear it's just the sound from Tears of the Kingdom of them cooking?
Yeah, the guy's opening a book and looking in his inventory.
Carrying bundles of like mighty bananas and apples and some mushrooms, just throwing it into a pot.
Just all putting it, and then comes out a perfect plate with,
I'm served a mystery, whatever that shit is.
Yeah.
No, that was a ton of fun. Love doing this. Love answering the questions. I love involving some of the listeners into gauging what goes on the podcast. So send in
Absolutely.
more, and we'll definitely get to this later.
Yeah, I can't wait. But until then, we love every single one of you, and we can't wait to talk to you soon. My name's Andrew Parlay Bascom. Hey, and with me as always is the Bad Boy of Podcasting, late night, Mikey Aaronworth. You say your name usually, right?
Well, yeah. You also say Mr. Bebop himself.
Oh, Mr. Bebop himself.
Mikey Aaronworth.
Also known as Late Night. This is the Retrograde Podcast.
Game over.
I'm rusty. It's been a couple weeks because I was in Japan. I don't know if I told you I was in Japan.
Yeah, and I missed the shit out of you.
Furnished by Sad Styles Productions.
I'm old like you dweebs.